Someone asks you for a favor, and before you've even thought about it, your mouth is already saying, "Of course." But somewhere underneath that easy yes, something in your chest quietly sinks. A small, heavy exhale you don't let anyone see. You've done this so many times you don't even notice it anymore. Rearranging your schedule for someone else's convenience. Softening your opinion so the room stays comfortable. Saying it's fine when it wasn't fine at all. And each time, a tiny part of you goes quiet. Not dramatically, not all at once, but the way a room slowly gets dimmer when, one by one, the lights are switched off. Maybe you've built an entire life this way. A life that looks generous from the outside, dependable, easygoing, endlessly accommodating. But if you're honest, late at night, when no one is asking anything of you at all, you're not quite sure what you actually want anymore. You've spent so long managing everyone else's comfort that your own preferences have gone quiet, like a language you used to speak fluently and slowly forgot. If this feels familiar, I want you to stay with me here, because tonight we're going to gently understand why this happens, and more importantly, how to come back from it. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why you keep abandoning yourself for the people around you, even the ones you love the most. And you'll learn about one idea from the psychologist Carl Jung, a single shift in understanding, that has quietly changed the way thousands of people relate to themselves. But before we go any further, I need to say this clearly, because I don't want you to misunderstand what's coming. This isn't a video about becoming selfish. It isn't about abandoning the people you care about, or hardening yourself, or stopping the giving that makes you who you are. This is about something much gentler than that. This is about finally including yourself in the list of people you take care of. Let's begin now that you've felt this ache. Let's gently understand where it was first learned. Because none of us are born this way. No child arrives into the world already skilled at disappearing. That skill, if we can call it that, is learned. Slowly, carefully, out of necessity. Think back, if you can, to what earned love in your house growing up. Maybe it wasn't your joy, or your curiosity, or the strange, specific things that made you you. Maybe what earned the warmest smiles, the proudest nods, the safest kind of attention, was being agreeable. Being easy, being helpful, not needing too much, not feeling too much, at least not out loud. And so, without ever deciding to, you began to shape yourself around what worked. You became remarkably good at reading a room before you even understood what a room was. You learned which parts of you to lead with, and which parts to quietly set aside for later. A later that, for many of us, never actually comes. I think of this like the difference between a mirror and a window. A window lets light pass through it, unaltered. It simply lets you see what's in there. But a mirror doesn't let anything through. It only reflects back whatever's standing in front of it. And somewhere along the way, many of us learn to become mirrors instead of windows, reflecting back exactly what the people around us needed to see, so that we'd be easier to love, safer to keep close. Carl Jung had a word for this. He called it the persona, from the Latin word for the masks actors once wore on stage. The persona isn't fake exactly. It's the socially acceptable version of us, the one we present to the world so we can function, belong, be understood. Everyone has one. It's not the problem. The problem is what happens when we forget it's a mask at all, when we wear the persona so long, so faithfully that we start to believe it is us, and the real self underneath, the one with actual wants and actual edges, slowly stops speaking. Not because it died, just because for a long time no one asked it anything. That quiet erasure is where tonight's ache truly begins, Dot. This is where that early lesson quietly, invisibly, adds up. Let me tell you about someone. We'll call him Adil. Adil was the kind of person everyone loved having around. The peacemaker in every group chat, the one who remembered birthdays, smoothed over arguments, showed up early to help set up, and stayed late to help clean. If you asked anyone who knew him, they'd tell you he was one of the kindest people they'd ever met.
One evening, sitting alone in his apartment after a long day of taking care of everyone else's needs, Adil realized something that stopped him cold. He could tell you, without thinking, exactly how his mother liked her tea. He knew his best friend's coffee order, his sister's favorite flowers, his co-worker's go-to comfort food when she'd had a hard week. But when he tried to answer a much simpler question, what do I actually want for myself in this one life I'm living? He came up empty. Not because the answer was complicated, but because no one had asked him that question in so long, including himself, that he genuinely didn't know. That's the cost we rarely talk about. It doesn't announce itself as tragedy. It shows up as a strange, low-grade emptiness, a sense of being endlessly useful and quietly invisible at the same time, a resentment that has nowhere honest to go, so it leaks out sideways, in exhaustion, in irritability over small things, in a tiredness that sleep never seems to fix. And here's the part I really want you to hear gently, without shame. This kind of self-abandonment rarely looks like self-abandonment. It looks like kindness. It looks like being the reliable one, the strong one, the one who doesn't need much. It gets praised. It gets rewarded, which makes it almost impossible to notice, let alone question. Because who complains about being too generous, too easy to love? But peace that costs you your own priorities isn't peace, it's postponement. Every time you swallow your preference to keep things smooth, every time you say, I don't mind when you do mind, you're not just being generous, you're quietly voting yourself off your own list. And the grief in this isn't really about any one moment. It's the slow accumulation of 1,000 small moments where you chose everyone else's comfort over your own truth. Until one day, like Adil, you sit alone in a quiet room and realize you've become fluent in everyone's needs except your own. If any part of this feels familiar, if you too could write a detailed list of everyone else's preferences before you could name one clear dream of your own, please don't turn this into another reason for shame. This isn't a character flaw. It's the natural outcome of a lesson learned a long time ago, in rooms you didn't choose, by a version of you who was simply trying to stay loved. But Jung believed there was a way back. And that's where we're headed next. But Jung didn't just diagnose this ache. He gave it a name and a way through. He called it individuation, the lifelong process of becoming who you actually are, beneath every mask, every role, every version of yourself that was shaped to keep the peace. Not becoming someone new, becoming who you were underneath it all, before the world taught you which parts of you were safe to show. I think of individuation like a river that was dammed a long time ago. Somewhere upstream, in childhood, a dam was built, not out of cruelty, but necessity, to keep the water from overflowing into rooms that couldn't hold it. And so, the river was diverted, redirected into smaller, safer channels. The good student, the easy friend, the dependable one, the peacemaker. For years, maybe decades, the water flowed exactly where it was told to flow. But a river dammed for too long doesn't disappear. It just presses, quietly, endlessly, against the walls holding it back. That pressure is the ache we've been talking about tonight. It's not weakness. It's the current of your actual self, still moving, still very much alive, waiting for the moment it's finally allowed to find its own course. Individuation is that moment. It's not a single dramatic event. It's not one day waking up fixed. It's a slow, ongoing return. It's noticing again and again where you've been flowing into someone else's channel instead of your own. And gently, without violence, letting the water find its natural path. And here is what I think is the most important reframe of this entire video. Choosing yourself is not the opposite of loving others well. It's the foundation of it. Think about it honestly. A river that's been dammed for years doesn't nourish the land around it properly either. It either dries up in some places or floods in others, because it was never allowed to move the way it was meant to. In the same way, A self that's been suppressed for the comfort of others doesn't actually give people your best. It gives them your performance, your persona, your careful management. It gives them everything except the one thing real connection actually needs, the truth of who you are. The people who truly love you were never asking you to disappear for them. That was a fear you inherited, not a fact they demanded. The most honest form of love, for yourself and for others, doesn't come from constant self-erasure. It comes from a self that's whole enough to show up freely, not out of guilt or obligation, but out of genuine choice.
So individuation isn't selfish. It's not abandoning the people you love. It's finally letting your river move the way it was always meant to, so that what you offer the world is not a mask, but you. And now, let's talk about what that actually looks like in daily life. Understanding. This is one thing. Living it is another. So, let's make it real. Here's what no one tells you about choosing yourself for the first time. It doesn't feel like freedom right away. It often feels like guilt. A strange, uncomfortable weight in your chest when you say no to something you would have automatically said yes to a year ago. A voice in your head that whispers you're being difficult. You're being cold. This isn't like you. I want you to know, gently but clearly, that guilt is not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's simply the sound of an old pattern losing its grip. If you spent years being rewarded for disappearing, then the first few times you don't disappear, of course it's going to feel unfamiliar, even wrong. That discomfort isn't a red flag telling you to stop. It's a growing pain telling you that something real is finally shifting. Think of it like a muscle that's never been used before. The first time you use it, it aches. Not because you're injuring yourself, but because it's waking up. Choosing yourself works the same way. It gets easier not because the guilt disappears completely, but because you slowly learn to trust yourself through it, instead of retreating the moment it shows up. So, how do we actually begin practicing this, gently, without turning your whole life upside down overnight? Not through some dramatic reinvention, just through small, honest moments of noticing. Here's something I'd love for you to try tonight before you go to sleep. Take a quiet moment, in bed, at your desk, wherever feels calm, and ask yourself one simple question. What did I want to say today and didn't? Maybe it was a no you swallowed. Maybe it was a preference you kept quiet to avoid disagreement. Maybe it was simply, I'm tired, or I don't actually want to go, said instead as, sure, no problem. Don't judge whatever comes up. Just write it down, a few words, a sentence, whatever comes naturally. Not to fix it tonight, not to go back and redo the day, just to witness it, just to let that unspoken thing know that you heard it, even if the world didn't. Because that's really what individuation asks of us in the beginning, not bold declarations, not burning your old life down, just small, repeated moments of listening to yourself as closely as you've spent years listening to everyone else. Do this enough nights in a row, and something quiet starts to shift. You start to know your own preferences again. You start to recognize your own voice underneath the persona. And slowly, the guilt that once felt like a warning sign starts to feel like something else entirely. Evidence that you're finally, gently, coming home. I want to be gentle with you as we close tonight, because I don't want you to leave this video thinking you need to transform overnight. You won't wake up tomorrow suddenly fluent in your own needs after years of silence. You won't stop the automatic yes the very next time someone asks something of you. And that's all right. This was never about a single switch flipping. It's a river finding its course again, slowly, patiently, sometimes doubling back before it moves forward. Individuation isn't an event. It's a relationship you rebuild with yourself, one honest moment at a time for the rest of your life. So be patient with yourself the way you'd be patient with someone you love who is just learning something difficult, because you are. Before you go, I want to leave you with one small ritual. Not a resolution, not a big promise, just a quiet act of accountability. In the comments below, I'd love for you to share one small thing you're going to start doing for yourself this week. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It could be as simple as saying no to one thing I don't want to do, or asking for what I actually want at dinner instead of I don't mind, or taking 20 minutes just for myself with no guilt attached. Write it down, not for anyone else to judge or applaud, but so that some part of you hears it out loud, and so that someone else, scrolling through these comments late at night, sees your words and feels a little braver about choosing themselves too. Because here's what I want you to carry with you after tonight. Choosing yourself was never selfish. It never meant caring less about the people you love. It simply means finally including yourself in that same circle of care you've been so generous in offering everyone else. Self-devotion isn't a betrayal of the people around you. It's sacred. It's the quiet, ongoing act of saying, I matter too, not instead of you, alongside you. So the next time someone asks something of you, and you feel that familiar yes rising automatically to your lips, I want you to pause, just for a breath, and ask the question underneath it. Not what does this person need from me, but what is true for me, right now, in this moment. You might still say yes, but let it be a yes that comes from choice, not disappearance. If this found you tonight, I don't think that was an accident either. Come back next week, and we'll keep walking this road together, a little more yourself each time. Until then, rest well. You're allowed to matter here too.